Um, Today I'd like to talk about recording oral tradition or verbal traditions through visual media. And before I start, I'd like to introduce the team behind the project and what we do, why we do the project, the process of the data collections and making, as well as the on-site installation, documentation, and a walk in Chinatown. Liu Jianing is a designer in Brand Union, a world-class global brand agency. She is one of the students from School of Art Design and Media from my school, and she does most of the illustrations for these documentations. Alvin Ng is a Singapore-based designer that he's in charge of the design and the productions of this project, and I'm the PI of the project and did most of the writing. And we are very interested to study the routines in everyday life and their productions, mainly to understand why people do what they do, such as how is you rarely found a kettle in a Chinese home, and how are red dates and melon seed must have at a Chinese wedding. For many Singaporean Chinese, there are just some of the traditions, myths and taboos that shape our daily life, and they have passed down from generation to generations. Mostly of these verbal traditions are lost when they reach Generation X. That's the generation now, because Generation X are better educated. Therefore, they believe they know more than their grandparents and parents. And they felt that these verbal traditions have little scientific proof. Based on this aspect, CHOI is the project that we are on, investigate and archive these verbal traditions and small little practice before they fade away. Through the verbal media, this project aims to bring out the reminiscent feelings of old traditions and remind people about their childhood day while traditions, myths, and taboos were a big part of their life. Although in this modern, developed, and globalized Singapore, traditions have become immaterials, yet it is always valuable to archive them for our youngers and future generations. Survey was done to find out some common superstitions or traditions among Chinese Singaporeans, especially from the older generations of family members to neighbors. Second, we interviewed the temple's owner and shop owner of Chinatown. Then the superstitious practice was organized under 4 categories: perfections, animals, ceremony, and human well-being. Next, we collect data from the books and journal and films, and we compare the data across these different sources to verify the information. And this is some of the data that we've collected. So there's a lot of them listed under like the 4 categories that I have mentioned just now. And with so many data, we decided to narrow down to those that can be linked to the real environment. So we felt that it would be more interesting if we can bring them to life. A walking journey will be appropriate in this case. That's what we thought. And after giving some thought to the potential area of the walking journey, we decided to focus on Chinatown, as Chinatown encapsulates almost all the Chinese traditions, custom and lifestyle of Chinese Singaporeans. The challenge is to find a route that is interesting and filled with traditional elements, full of history or story. And it cannot have a wide gaps of empty space. If not, people might get bored or lost. With those in mind, we went down to Chinatown to do some documentations on the existing shops and places, and even observe the lifestyle of the people living there. And of course, many trips was made in order to finalize the route. And we found shops and other elements that allow us to bring up the facts and detail of the verbal traditions for the walking journey. And the walks focus more on the important event on Chinese lunar calendar, for instance, Hungry Ghost Festival, Lunar Chinese New Year, and traditional Chinese wedding ceremony. After the design of the route, we decided to create a guidebook for the walking journey with brief background information in every fresh chapter to give reader a better understanding of the Chinese festival and ceremony. In order to make the journey more interesting, we include illustration of the past Chinatown, and also we include activities to make the book or to make the journey more interesting. One example of the activities that reader can engage along the journey is Beat the Little Man activities. These traditional, according to Chinese, will ensure that any negativities does not affect or hinders our undertakings. With the guidebook, reader need not just read and understand about this form of practice, but rather get involved in it. The illustrations used are mainly based on real-life scene in Chinatown. The reason for using a more realistic representation of the image is to allow the reader to relate more to the place, and the illustration is also part of the intention to document Chinatown and its neighborhood. The illustration style of the guidebook is of a more painterly and sketchy approach. The images are hand-drawn, then we scan it and later give a color touch-up in Photoshop. Photoshop brushes are customized to create watercolor effects. The format of the book is a handheld size that is both portable and convenient to bring around. Now I'll show the verbal tradition that we have documented. The first one is the cooling drinks that we have when we feel heaty. It means our internal body is hot. That is a saying more on the eastern but not the western side. The drinks are pineapple drinks, coconut drinks, glass jelly drinks, and green bean soup. And to the Chinese, some plants are shunned for being taboo, such as banana plants and kettles, as they harvest spirits or emit negative energy. Other plants did the exact opposite, such as bohi tree and pomegranate tree. They ward off evil and help to keep people safe. And the other document is the practice of beating the little man that I mentioned just now. It's a tradition that the Chinese use to drive spirits and people who are obstructing their success and causing them harm or pain. And this is how Singaporeans hang our clothes to dry using a bamboo pole, and you run the risk of bad luck if you walk behind this undergarment hanging on the pole. Food takes on a symbolic role in Chinese traditions, particularly during festival or for rituals. For example, melon seeds symbolize fertility, and it means generation after generation of children and grandchildren. And dry oyster is prepared during Chinese New Year to bring good fortune to the coming year, as oyster in Chinese mean fortunate events. For Chinese wedding, in tradition there is a few items which are a must-have, such as baby bathtub and potty, as it blesses the couples with many children, and wedding candles symbolize a long and bright life together. Sewing kit signify a capable wife, and double happiness paper cutout represent unity and togetherness. The last but not least, motif of Mandarin ducks stand for happiness and harmony for marriage couples. For Lunar New Year 7 months, which is the Hungry Ghost Festival, in Singapore there will be Ge Tai, a song stage performance. Traditionally, the first row seat will always be empty, as they are meant for the spirit, and in this period, the Chinese will watch their step, as we believe that the spirit will take offense if you step on or kick any offering on the floor. The tradition is to apologize immediately to show that you have no ill intentions. Traditional Chinese pastry, like most Chinese food, often have special meaning. Pineapple tarts, New Year cake, prosperity cakes are regarded as auspicious because, for example, pineapple tarts in Hokkien, a dialect, means prosperity to come, and New Year cake in Chinese means a year high, which signify good fortune for the year. And then there are some interesting traditions we practice on mealtime too. For example, when serving rice, it is inauspicious to take only one or offer one scoop. Single scoop of rice are reserved as offering to the dead, so Chinese always take double scoop of rice for double happiness and longevities. And never stick your chopstick straight up into your rice bowl. Again, it means offering for the dead. For giving, Chinese believe that clocks are probably one of the worst gifts to receive because clock and end of life sound exactly the same in Cantonese. And if you give someone a pair of shoes, it's akin to encourage the recipient to run away. Not a good sign, especially for couples. So this is how the final design of the guidebook looked like. It consists of 4 parts: the main information book, an activities book, a book jacket that can be opened up to a poster, and a book sleeve. The book jacket can be folded into 2 different designs, and the book sleeve can turn into a paper bag for reader to pick up some interesting item during the walk. And based on what we collected on verbal traditions, we realized that there are a high number on superstitions, so we decided to set up public place installation to observe how Singaporeans in general behave towards superstitious belief, myths, and taboo, and also to document the visual traditions in another form of visual media, the video and the camera. The 3 superstitious taboos selected are the myth of stepping on offering, the myth of walking under long bamboo pole, and lastly, stepping on books. The experiment testing involved a simple setup at appropriate locations to simulate a situational conditions, and 2 video cameras were set up at different corners to document the testing, and we also interviewed the subjects to gain feedback and thoughts regarding the superstitious taboos. On the first testing, stepping on offering, it was said that by stepping on offerings such as food, paper money, candles, the spirit will assume that you have ill intention towards them and therefore will possess you, and you will suffer for illnesses. And so if you accidentally step on any offering, just apologize and say that you did not mean to touch their things. This will appease the spirit and nothing will happen to you. And the location, we need places that we heavy human traffic. So we decided to use the crowded linkway between Tampines MRT stations and Tampines bus interchange. This is the setup. The altar, which consists of the poster, statement, 5 oranges, 3 joysticks, and a pair of red candles. The reason for the altar is to create an experiment design that will instill a sense of fear in people and create a fake impressions that Chinese ritual is going on. 3 big stripes of incense paper are placed right across the walkway, align left and right to create a maze-like routine. The maze will lead the subject to the altar to find out what the installation is about. If the subject are superstitious about this taboo, they will walk in an S movement to avoid stepping onto the paper. And those who have slight knowledge about the taboo are not superstitious, they might just walk over the incense paper. And those have no prior knowledge and are not superstitious, they might just step on the offering. The response starts off slowly with people throwing quick glance at the altar of the installations. Most of the Chinese elderly took a long, confused look at the installation and simply followed the S route. There was quite a number of adults ranging from 30 to 40 stepping onto the incense paper. And interestingly, a lot of secondary school students stopped suddenly in front of the incense paper and take a detour instead. There was this boy who accidentally stepped on the incense paper, and he quickly put back the paper nicely and then apologized to the altar. After 3 hours, the crowd started to presume that the installation was set up as propaganda from a crouch group, the Falun Gong, and we end up in trouble with the police. One passersby alerted the police to call for investigation on our intention. This person might felt insecurity and fear created by the installations. Fortunately, the policeman was understanding and reasonable after we explained the rationale behind these installations. One of the policemen, GP Tan, told us that the installation was sensitive and is related to religions, and he added that the society is still not as open to accept this form of installations. For the second installation, it was said that the walking under a long bamboo pole with hanging clothes on it will bring bad luck to you. However, should you walk under any of it accidentally, just sweep just sweep your hand over your head and shoulder to remove the bad luck that is bestowed on you. A proper location for this documentation will be under a HDB flat. Like I mentioned before, this is how Singaporeans hang their clothes to dry. Block 931 at Jurong West was chosen because there was a metal shaft at the ground level that we can place the bamboo pole, and is also near a main traffic lights. The process includes setting up of the long bamboo pole with bright red undergarments and clothing on the metal shaft. A poster explaining the objective of the project was put up near the wall for better understanding. And this is how the setup looked like. There are two convenient ways for passers-by to exit and enter Block 931. One is to walk under the bamboo pole, or either they take an obvious detour by the side to avoid the pole. And for the third route, the passers-by have to walk over a patch of glass. For the long hour of observation at the location, majority of the people who saw the bamboo pole were not really aware of it. It does not seem to pose much threat to the subjects. There were some female subjects ranged from 50 to 60, showing their unhappiness, except that the other just look and move on. The sampling that react more violently were mostly men. This was probably due to the fact that the clothing on the pole was mostly female underwear, and some did sweep their hand over their head to remove the bad luck. And then on high side, the bamboo pole is right on top of the entrance of the HDB block. Therefore, majority of the subjects who came out of the block did not realize the existence of it, and taking in the fact that there was only one pole, if we could put more, it would be more realistic and impactful. For the third installation, there is a saying that items such as book, newspaper, and documentation should be treated with respect. Stepping on such material are seen as disrespectful act. The consequences of the offender will end up being a slow learner. The choice of the location must consist of sitting area where there are proper tables and chairs, and the presence of students. Therefore, we felt the best location for the testing is in a school, so we choose Canteen A at Nanyang Technological University, as we hope that the student will move on after their meals, and then we have more testing done. The process of the setting includes setting up of the book that represent footrest on the floor. A poster with catchy tagline and statement for the installation are placed right on top of the table. And then the initial plans was to place the layer of books as seat cushion as well. However, the seat dictates many subjects for approaching the seat. Many assume that the seat was actually taken, as Singaporeans are well known for chopping their seat. They use like tissue paper or documents. So we then decided to remove the book from the seat and have them as footrest only. Majority of the subjects claim that they are not superstitious, while some felt that to step on the book is a form of disrespect for the books and to the creator of the books. There is one lady's claim that her mother have told her about this superstitious belief, and she believed it. In general, the subject don't really care about stepping on the books, and they were pretty intrigued by the existence of such taboo in Singapore. In retrospect, Singaporeans are still quite rational and reasonable when it comes to issues that are not instill much fear. When it comes to sensitive issues that concern religions matter, they will show respect to it. However, one of the main fear and concern that result in many rituals and superstitions taboo in Singapore boil down to monetary issues. Living in such a pragmatic society, we felt that Singapore's greater fear is not having enough money in their pockets. And we felt that such superstitious behavior of Chinese Singaporeans is not purely influenced by traditions, but shaped and formed by the culture and the society itself. I'll go through quickly the last part about how we share the archive of the Berber tradition with the public. So we did a talk that was organized by the National Book Development Council of Singapore and Singapore National Library Board. And the public have to sign up for it. So the walk happened in last year and it was fully booked. The audience that turned up on that day, majority was adult above 50 years old, a few in their 20s, and the rest were children who their parents who want them to understand our traditions. So this is some of the photo from the walk. Okay, thank you.